The Gulf. Just hearing the name conjures up images of towering skyscrapers, luxurious shopping malls, and of course, oil money, glorious oil money. It's no wonder that for decades, people from all over the world have flocked to the Gulf countries, lured by the promise of tax-free salaries, exciting career opportunities, and a lifestyle that's, well, let's just say comfortable. The Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCCC as it's known, boasts some of the highest GDPs per capita in the world. But as with any seemingly perfect oasis in the desert, if you dig a little deeper, you might find that glistening surface hides a much more complicated reality. Because for many expats, the Gulf dream can quickly turn into a struggle against bureaucratic hurdles, legal complexities, and cultural barriers they never anticipated. So you've landed your dream job in the Gulf, tax-free salary, housing allowance, the whole shebang. You're practically swimming in dirhams, rials, or dinars, depending on where you've landed. But hold your celebratory camel ride for a second, because while the initial offer might seem generous, the reality on the ground is often a different story. See, those fat paychecks that used to be the norm, they're starting to slim down. Companies are tightening their belts, and guess who's feeling the squeeze? Yep, expats. And then there's the issue of the No Objection Certificate, or NOC, as it's ominously called. This little piece of paper, or lack thereof, can make or break your career in the Gulf. It essentially gives your current employer the power to prevent you from accepting a new job, even if it's a better opportunity. Talk about having your ambitions held hostage by paperwork. And if that wasn't enough to give you an ulcer, let's talk about delayed salaries. It's not uncommon for companies, especially in certain sectors, to delay salary payments, sometimes for months. Remember that comfortable lifestyle you were promised. More like instant ramen and budgeting nightmares. And don't even get me started on overtime. Oh, you thought those extra hours you're putting in would be generously compensated? Think again. Unpaid overtime is a rampant issue, especially for those in lower-paying jobs. But hey, at least you're not being discriminated against based on your nationality, right? Wrong. Salary discrepancies based on where your passport is from. Sadly, it's a thing. And if you thought you could climb the corporate ladder and finally achieve that corner office with the panoramic view of artificial islands, good luck with that. Career progression for expats can feel like trying to run up a sand dune. To add insult to injury, companies are increasingly hiring retired expats at significantly lower salaries to fill senior roles, further limiting opportunities for those trying to build a career in the region. So much for that tax-free paradise, eh? Okay, let's talk about everyone's favorite topic, visas, specifically the kafala system. Kafala, which translates to sponsorship, sounds lovely, doesn't it? Like some kind of benevolent program where a wealthy sheikh takes you under their wing. In reality, it's more like having your wings clipped. Under kafala, your visa, your right to live and work in the country, is entirely dependent on your sponsor, usually your employer. Want to change jobs? You need your sponsor's permission? Want to leave the country? You guessed it, sponsor's permission. Feeling like you're back in high school, asking your parents for permission to go to the mall yet? And it gets worse. The kafala system has been widely criticized for creating an uneven power dynamic, leaving expats vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. Stories of employers confiscating passports, withholding wages, or even forcing employees to work against their will are sadly not uncommon. And if you think you have any legal recourse, well, the legal system in some Gulf countries can be, shall we say, opaque. Expats often find themselves navigating a complex and unfamiliar legal system with limited access to legal aid or protection. And in the unfortunate event that you find yourself on the wrong side of the law, deportation is a very real possibility. But hey, at least you can bring your family over to enjoy this restrictive paradise with you, right? Well, about that, family sponsorship is another minefield. It's expensive, it's complicated, and it's often subject to arbitrary rules and regulations. So that dream of raising your family in the lap of luxury, might end up feeling more like a bureaucratic hostage situation. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or should I say the Lamborghini SUV, parked next to your Kia Picanto, the cost of living. Yes, those tax-free salaries are starting to look a lot less appealing when you realize just how much it costs to exist in some Gulf cities. Rent, groceries, school fees. Even a simple cup of coffee can put a serious dent in your budget. And let's not forget about those hidden costs like exorbitant utility bills, expensive international schools, and the constant pressure to keep up with the Joneses, who in this case probably own the actual Jones Act and several oil wells. Remember those retirement plans you were making? Yeah, you might want to put those on hold. While some Gulf countries offer limited social security benefits to expats, they're often not enough to live on comfortably. And if you're hoping to supplement your income with a side hustle, good luck. Work permit restrictions often make it difficult, if not impossible, for expats to take on additional employment, and if you're thinking of starting your own business, be prepared to navigate a labyrinthine bureaucracy and face stiff competition from well-connected locals. Oh, and let's not forget about everyone's favorite topic, taxes. While income tax might be non-existent, that doesn't mean you get to live a tax-free life. From VAT to municipality taxes to hidden fees, you'll be surprised how quickly those non-existent taxes add up. And let's not even get started on the sin tax on things like alcohol and tobacco. It seems like the only thing that's truly tax-free in the Gulf is the stress of trying to make ends meet. Chapter 4, Labour Camps, the dark side of the Gulf Dream. We've talked about the struggles of white-collar expats, but what about the millions of blue-collar workers who form the backbone of the Gulf's economy? You know, the ones building those glittering skyscrapers, serving you endless cups of carrot tea and keeping the whole system running. Well, their reality couldn't be more different. From the air-conditioned, champagne-fueled lifestyle often associated with the Gulf. Many of these workers, often from South Asian countries, live in cramped, unsanitary labour camps, far removed from the gleaming city centres. Imagine dozens of men sharing a single room with limited access to basic amenities like clean water and proper sanitation. These workers often toil under the scorching sun for hours on end, with little to no protection from heat stroke or exhaustion. Workplace accidents are common, and access to healthcare can be limited. And let's not forget about the exploitation. Wage theft, passport confiscation and forced labor are all too common in these camps, and the kafala system only serves to exacerbate the power imbalance between employers and employees. These workers come to the Gulf with dreams of providing a better life for their families back home, only to find themselves trapped in a cycle of debt and exploitation. The next time you're marveling at a new skyscraper or enjoying the convenience of a perfectly manicured park, take a moment to think about the human cost behind these feats of engineering and luxury. Because while the Gulf might be a land of opportunity for some, for many others, it's a place where dreams turn into nightmares and the pursuit of a better life comes at a very high price. Chapter 5, a hierarchy of nations where your passport dictates your worth. Now, let's talk about something that might make some people uncomfortable. Discrimination. Because as much as some Gulf countries like to promote themselves as cosmopolitan melting pots, the reality is that a hierarchy exists, and where you come from often determines where you stand in that hierarchy. Let's start with the workplace. It's not uncommon for expats to find themselves passed over for promotions in favor of local candidates, even if those candidates have less experience or qualifications. And then there's the issue of pay disparity. Expats from Western countries, particularly those with white skin, are often offered significantly higher salaries than their counterparts from developing countries, even for the same job with the same level of experience. And if you think this kind of discrimination is limited to the workplace, think again. From housing to healthcare to even social interactions, Expats from certain countries are often treated differently and not in a good way. This kind of systemic bias can create a deeply isolating and demoralizing experience for many expats, making it difficult to feel truly integrated or accepted in their adopted homes. It also perpetuates a system of inequality that benefits a select few while leaving countless others feeling marginalized and exploited. Chapter 6. Culture Shock. Navigating the social minefield. Okay, let's be real. Moving to a new country always comes with a certain degree of culture shock, but let's just say that the Gulf takes culture shock to a whole new level. From the strict social customs to the conservative dress codes to the ever-present religious sensitivities, adapting to life in the Gulf can feel like learning a whole new set of rules. And if you're not careful, you can quickly find yourself committing a major faux pas. Public displays of affection, not a good idea. Drinking alcohol in public, definitely a no-no. Criticizing the government or the ruling family, let's just say you might find yourself on the next flight home. And then there's the issue of social segregation. While the Gulf might be home to people from all over the world, social circles tend to be quite insular, with expats often sticking with their own nationalities and locals keeping to themselves. This can make it challenging for expats to truly integrate into Gulf society and experience the local culture beyond the superficial level. And let's not forget about the limited entertainment options. While some Gulf countries have made strides in recent years to offer more diverse entertainment options, many expats still find themselves longing for the cultural vibrancy and freedom of expression they enjoyed back home. Okay, let's talk about the weather, because let's face it, you can't talk about the Gulf without talking about the weather, specifically the scorching, relentless, soul-crushing heat. We're talking temperatures that can soar above 50 degrees Celsius. That's 122 degrees Fahrenheit for you Americans. Humidity that feels like you're swimming through soup, and sandstorms that can turn day into night. Now you might be thinking, it's hot everywhere, I can handle a little heat. But trust me, the heat in the Gulf is on a whole other level. It seeps into your bones, it saps your energy, and it makes even the simplest tasks feel like a Herculean effort. And if you're not careful, it can seriously impact your health. Heat stroke, dehydration, and sunstroke are all too common, especially for those who are not used to such extreme temperatures. And let's not forget about the mental toll that the heat can take. The constant exposure to extreme weather can lead to fatigue, irritability, and even depression. And if you do happen to get sick, well, let's just say that the healthcare system in the Gulf can be a bit of a mixed bag. While some Gulf countries boast state-of-the-art medical facilities and highly qualified doctors, access to affordable quality healthcare can be a challenge, especially for those who are not covered by their employers. All right, let's talk about love, because everyone loves a good love story, right? But in the Gulf, love can be a complicated affair, especially for expats. Let's start with the obvious premarital relationships. While some Gulf countries have become more relaxed about unmarried couples living together, it's still technically illegal in many places. And let's not even get started on public displays of affection. Holding hands? Maybe. A quick peck on the cheek? Risky. A full-blown makeout session in the middle of the mall? Let's just say you're asking for trouble, and if you're thinking of starting a family, well, things get even more complicated. Marriage laws in the Gulf are complex and vary widely depending on the country and even the specific emirate. In some cases, expats are required to get their marriage legally recognized in their home country, and then again in the Gulf. A bureaucratic nightmare that can take months and cost a small fortune. And then there's the issue of children born out of wedlock. Let's just say that it's a taboo subject in many Gulf countries, and unmarried mothers can face significant legal and social challenges. So if you're looking for a place to sow your wild oats or start a family without any hassle, the Gulf might not be the best choice. Now, let's talk about business, because who doesn't love the idea of being their own boss, setting their own hours and raking in the big bucks? And the Gulf, with its booming economy and tax-friendly environment, might seem like the perfect place to launch your entrepreneurial dreams. But hold your horses, because starting a business in the Gulf is not for the faint of heart. First, there's the issue of sponsorship. Remember that pesky kafala system we talked about earlier? Well, it rears its ugly head again in the business world. In many Gulf countries, expats are required to have a local sponsor who will typically own a majority stake in the business, even if they have no actual involvement in the day-to-day operations. And as you can imagine, finding a trustworthy local sponsor is like finding a needle in a haystack made of gold-plated sand. And even if you do manage to find a sponsor and navigate the labyrinthine bureaucracy to get your business registered, you'll soon discover that the Gulf is a highly competitive market, with established businesses and well-connected local families often having a significant advantage. And let's not forget about the ever-present cultural and language barriers, which can make it challenging to build relationships with suppliers, customers, and even employees. So, there you have it, the good, the bad, and the ugly of expat life in the Gulf. It's a region of striking contrasts, where unimaginable wealth exists alongside abject poverty, where dazzling modernity clashes with deeply ingrained traditions, and where the promise of opportunity often comes at a steep price. While the Gulf might still hold a certain allure for those seeking adventure, fortune, or a change of scenery, it's important to go in with your eyes wide open, aware of the challenges and complexities that await. The Gulf is not for everyone, but for those who are willing to embrace the adventure, navigate the complexities, and respect the culture. It can be a rewarding, albeit challenging experience. Just remember to pack your patience, your sense of humor, and maybe a few extra bottles of sunscreen, because you're going to need them.